Hey all, welcome to the frames lesson of the designer class. I'm Hubby and I'm excited to share this with you because I think you're going to learn not only some new techniques and things, but also a way of making frames that you probably wouldn't have thought of on your own. I'm going to show you the thought process you probably would think of initially, and then the better way to do it. And I'm going to show you several ways of doing these things. I have here a frame that I've made, and it has the stuff sticking out over the edge for a little variety, and my husband said he liked it, and so I'm going to be downloading it as with the red mat and without the red mat, but I'm going to be sharing it in both ways. But let's go ahead and take that frame layer off, and we're going to start with the mat. The mat is actually a template that you're going to need to make no matter what frame that you decide to make. The reason for this is because of the size. Most of the prints that you get when you go to the store are 4x6 or 6x4 prints. The reason for that is because that's the best size for the photos just as they come out of your camera. Now, most people want to be able to just take their photo and slip it under a frame and be done. Now, so if you make it in this 4x6 size, they should be able to do that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get creative and make your frame square or circle or oval or whatever shape you want to make your frames, because people can learn to cut their photos to fit in those frames. But for the purpose of this lesson, we're going to stick with the rectangle, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's turn this layer off and create a new layer for us to play with. Now, your first thought might be to get the rectangular marquee tool, draw a selection that's rectangular, and fill it in. But you have no idea of what size that is. You're going to see up here it says height and width, but that is just to switch the height and width from one to the other. There's really no good way to set the height and the width using this tool. So we are going to deselect that, and I'm going to encourage you to go down here to your shapes tool and get the rectangle tool. And there's also a rounded rectangle tool there. But if you go up to this drop down menu next to this blue icon, you're going to see some options. Now, this might be located in different places in different versions of Photoshop Elements. Just look around for it. It's always been there. You're going to choose the fixed size and then the width as 6 inches, because I want to do a wider rectangle than high, and then I put 4 in the height. Now, you can make your frames the opposite of this to make your rectangle tall. That works also. Or if you want to just do the same and use the proportional, that would also work. As long as it's in some kind of proportion to the 6x4, that is the most used size frame. And so let's go and just click down once, and there we have. I have a 4x6 inch square. Now, it's not a square. A 4x6 rectangle. I have a shape here, and I could leave it in its vector, but I'm going to go ahead and right click and choose simplify to work with it. Now I want to cut out the center. Now, you could do this in a variety of ways. First thing I thought of, and I'm going to show you why you don't want to do this method, is I hit Control-J to duplicate it. I reduce the size of it. Yeah, a little too wide. You'd think now that this would stay proportional, right? I'm going to hold down my Control key and click on both of these layers to make them active. go to my align and align vertical centers, then align horizontal centers, so this second smaller shape is in the center of the first one. Hold down my control key, click on the thumbnail to get the selection, choose my first layer to make it the active layer, and hit delete. Get rid of that second layer, and now I have, voila, a perfectly centered hole. Didn't really work. Look at this. See how wide the side edges are as opposed to the top and the bottom edges? When it resizes down, even when it resizes down proportionately, it creates a frame that is like this. You might like this. This might be an idea for you. This is perfectly fine to have the cider edges wider than the top edges. Think outside of the box. This is perfect to be able to do this if this is the way you want to go. But I want to show you how to make it exactly the same all around. There's always so much to do. I'm hitting the undo button to get rid of this and go back to just my shape. There's always so many ways to do one thing and to think outside the box, and you never know where your playing is going to lead you, so just play and have fun. So if you were playing and you got led that way, go for it. Here's the view menu. Click on grid, and I'm going to just move this so it's in one of these spots, so it snaps right in there. Now I have shared this in other tutorials, but I'm going to go ahead and share it with you here. The edit drop down menu, preferences, and guides and grids. I prefer to think in inches. I think the default is pixels, but I'm sorry, when I went to school and I used a ruler and learned to measure, it never told me pixels. So in my mind, I can visually see how big an inch is. I can't visually see how big 30 pixels is. And so I choose inches, and I choose to divide it by 1 inch because that's the easiest for me to remember. And then I divide them into 4 subdivisions, which means that each square then would be 1/4 of an inch. So if you go out here and look, here is my main division line, so I know this is 1 inch, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 within each of them, so each of these is 1/4 of an inch. I can understand that and relate to it. Now you can change those preferences to anything. Maybe you might want to divide them up into 8 to be able to get the selection that we're getting ready to make to snap into a different size. That's fine. That would also work. When making the selection, I'm going to grab my Marquee tool. I could go here and just choose that 1/4 of an inch. I want to suggest that you think about how thick to make these, because the thinner the frame, the less the frame is going to grab visual weight. If you make a really thick frame, it's going to like grab all the visual weight and that photo is going to be lost in it. But the thinner the frame, actually the better, and the more success people are going to have with it. That's why I suggested maybe breaking these up into divisions of 8, because I think going out to a 1/2 an inch frame is actually a little big. But that's what we're going to do for our play today. But I really think it needs to be somewhere between the 1/4 inch and the 1/2 inch. But you guys need to play. And since we have our grid, things are going to snap into place. So I'm going to go and just draw a selection so it is 1/2 inch all the way around. Okay. There it is. And I'm going to hit the delete on the delete key, and I'm going to get rid of my grid, get rid of my selection by Control D. Now we have a nice template to work from. Now you need to make this template every time, whether or not you are going to use this to actually make the frame or whether you're going to use it to help size things up. And you'll see that later on when I show you the various methods in this tutorial. But now let's do a Control J and make the first layer invisible to keep it safe, because we may need to use that again. Now your first thought is, let's just apply a layer style to it. That is perfectly fine. I found under the complex drop down menu for the layer styles this one called Star Glow, and it makes a nice frame. However, you don't want that drop shadow on there, so I'm going to open up the style settings and take off that drop shadow. In earlier versions of Photoshop Elements they didn't have that, and so it made it much more difficult to get rid of those drop shadows. But you don't want to add drop shadows in your designs unless you are making some special drop shadows, and in that case you're going to want to offer the same element with and without your special drop shadow. I could share this frame just as it is. You could go out there and get a zillion different great layer styles. I try to show you and work with just the ones in the that come with Photoshop Elements, but remember there's lots of them out there, and you know, this could be our frame. It's pretty nice. I could simplify it, and then I'm going to exit out of my Yahoo Messenger. I could exit. I forgot what I was saying. I could share it just as it is, or use any number of the layer styles that we have out there that you can download, but I try to use just the ones that are in Photoshop Elements. And so we could stop there, but there's a whole lot more to learn. I want you to think about the frames on your wall that are put together with pieces of wood, and in those cases you're going to see a corner put together right here. That's going to be a more realistic looking frame, and so that's what we're going to move toward making now. And so let's go back and get a copy of this to work with. And your first thought is to cut this into pieces and then apply layer styles to it. And let me show you why that is not the best idea. But we're going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to get the polygonal lasso tool, because you won't see why things are the best way and not the best way until we do it. And let's go ahead and get our grid again, because it makes it easier. And I'm going to click down right here in the corner. Now here's a little tip I think you're going to like. If you hold down the Shift key, it will allow you to make a perfect 45-degree angle without having to eye this. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key, move my mouse out, and click down somewhere out there. Now I'm going to go down here and click out here. I'm going to click right here in this corner. Hold down that Shift key again, makes a perfect 45-degree angle. I click down again, and then we're going to move on up, which actually we don't have to do that. But if you just click down somewhere out here and double click, it finishes. When you double click, it finishes your selection to go back to the starting point. So now we have a selection with the corners of this piece right here on the side. Now I could hit hold down the Shift key. This is another keyboard shortcut I think you're going to like, and the Control key, and then J, and it cuts that. I'm going to hide this here. Cuts it out of this original layer and puts it on the next layer. That is Shift Control J. Very handy. But this is why you're not going to do that. We could select that for each of the edges and put them on a new layer until we had 4 layers. But this is why we're not going to do that. Let me take the grid off so you can see. When we do that, even though it's perfect from this corner to the other corner, because it's at an angle, Photoshop Elements has to make some choices and sort of feather that edge out for you. And so it's always, and trust me, I played it in every different ways. I even expanded the selection. This is actually not on, if you get in here very, very close, it's actually not a blank area between the two sections. I mean, it is actually a feathered, I guess you could say, edge, where they have lowered the opacity to this edge in order to create that diagonal line. And it's perfectly diagonal, but no matter what you do, it's always going to have that problem existing there. And so it is not a good idea to cut the pieces in this manner. So let's go ahead and get rid of those two. I have here, well, let's go here. Back to this frame we made. They're the same. So your next thought, here's your next thought, and here's why this does not work. You say, okay, I got a perfectly looking frame here. Why can't I just cut this after I've got it looking great? Well, let's try it. We're going to right click and simplify this to commit that layer style to there, and we're going to cut it in the same manner that we just did. Let's get that grid, and we're going to hold down our shift key as we go out here. We're going to go down here and go right in there, hold down our shift key to make a perpendicular line, and then just double click twice to finish it. And now we're going to hold down Control Shift J. Okay, we have now put that on its own layer. You would think that this would be perfectly fine, right? Not. We have that little line in there again. So that is just not going to work either. So you think to yourself, well, let's see. What if we just made all of those separately and then applied our layer style? I'm going to get rid of these. So I did that. I made a section. I'm not going to do it and show it to you how to do it because I've already shown you how to do it, but I made a section and I cut it up, and then I applied the layer style, and this is what you get. Okay, we're getting closer. No. I mean, this edge doesn't look at all like this edge, and it all has to do with the lighting. You know, and I could even try to change the lighting on that layer style and see if I can get it to look better, but no matter what you do, it's just not going to look right. So cutting your pieces and then applying layer styles in order to get that corner, which this one doesn't look too bad. Well, yeah, it does. It is not going to work. So what we're going to do next is show you the better way to do this, and there's several ways of doing this, as always. This is where I'm going to need my shape again. Now what I want to do is for this to be similar in size, I'm going to get my, I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer. get my rectangular selection tool. That's okay. You can do this first as a vertical or as a horizontal. It doesn't matter. For this case, I'm going to do vertical, and I'm just going to make something that's plenty larger. And actually, I don't need my template yet. I'm just going to make a selection about the size that I want my frame to be, and then I'm going to fill it. I use the Alt and the backspace key to fill it. You can use your paint bucket, however you've learned to fill things along the way. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and make that selection again by holding down the Control key and clicking on the thumbnail. I'm trying to think of what we can do with this. Let's go ahead and get the gradient tool and hit Control D and then X on the keyboard to make the foreground and the background colors white and then black. And I'm going to go get, let's see, default gradients, foreground to background. And I'm going to hold down my Shift key so this goes in a straight line, and I'm just going to fill this. Now we have sort of a metal looking frame to it. Next, I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, make another layer. Why not? And maybe get a different gradient. This time maybe I'm going to use the reflective gradient. And whoops, let's draw the selection first. And I'm going to draw a selection. It doesn't matter where you do it, how you do it, you got to play. I could center this if I wanted to. I'm actually going to try moving it. Whoops, got to get the move tool to move it. I'm actually going to, not the move tool. Okay. It's got the add to it on it. There we go. I was on the add to mode. That's why it had the plus sign on it and I couldn't move it. So now I'm going to move it. I'm going to leave this side thicker. You can do whatever you want. In fact, the sample I showed you will show you later. You're going to see is even different than this. So then I'm going to go back and get my gradient. Leave it foreground to background. This time I'm going to get the reflective gradient. Hold down my Shift key and draw and fill it up. So there is a kind of a bump on top of the frame. That'll work. I didn't know what I was going to come up with, but that looks pretty cool as it is, and that's what we're going to run with. I'm going to right click and merge down so that those two are on the same layer. Now here comes the part where you're going to need your template guide. I'm going to put this right here on the edge of the template. I've got the dark side in. I could change it and have the dark side out if I wanted to. You're just going to decorate this line. You can even apply layer styles to it, whatever you want to it. In fact, I'm going to add, I think I did this a little earlier, I'm going to add a little noise to it to make it look a little bit more metally. Let's just do 2. And you can see I added a little noise to it. Actually, I'm going to go back in there and show you again. You're going to want monochromatic, because if you don't, then you're going to get all those other little colors in there. So yeah, you can add a little bit of noise to it. It gives it some texture. I think that's a good idea if you're going after this kind of look. So now I'm going to hit Control J 3 times, and I've got 3 different layers of this. 1, 2, 3 added. And I'm going to go to the first one, and go to the image drop down menu, and I'm going to just rotate this horizontally and put it over here on this edge. Now what I'm focusing on is that the black stays on the inside, just as it is on the inside on this one. This one I'm going to do image, rotate, flip left. So if I want the black on the inside, this one's going to go down. And then I want to go to image, rotate right. And then this one's going to go up there. Now how far it extends out doesn't matter because we're going to be cutting those off. However, what does matter is observe here in your layer palette, and I want both of the vertical layers to be on top of the two horizontal layers. You could do it the other way and have both horizontals on top of both verticals, but as long as you're consistent, it's going to work. Now we need to do some cutting. And here's where, and I want to get all of this in view. Make sure I got this. See, I didn't have this quite right. I want these to be right on the edges of my frame, because this is what's going to size the frame. And I'm going to get rid of that frame to make it easier. Let's go back up here. I'm going to get the polygonal lasso tool again, and I'm going to click right down in the center of this, hold down my shift key, and it draws it in a 45-degree angle. Click down. Oh, I got to do it again. I let go as I was talking. Hold down my shift key, click again before you let go of your shift key, and then I'm going to go up and around this and then all the way somewhere, don't matter, I can go anywhere out here, and double click, and it finishes my selection for me. Now all of this is selected. I'm going to hit make sure I'm on the right layer, hit delete on the delete key, and you can see that makes a nice corner. But now we have this extending out over here. And so I'm going to get my rectangular tool and get right up to the edge, make sure I'm on the top horizontal layer. You know, you could name these. Top might be easier, bottom, left, and right to make sure you're on the right layer. And this is the top one, so then I'm going to hit delete, and now look at our nice beautiful corner. And it even has those lines in it where it meets, like you would see in a normal frame. Let's go on over to this side and do the same thing. And remember, I just did some simple gradient work. You could use any layer style and pile them up in any way that you want, which is what I did with that gold one at the beginning of the lesson. And so grab your polygonal tool, click down right in the center, hold down your shift key, go out at a 40-degree angle, click down, let go of your shift key, and now I'm going to click down above this and just keep clicking down. When I get down here, double click and it finishes it for me. Make sure I'm on the right layer. I need to be on the right side. Hit delete. Now I need to go back to the top layer, and if you need to zoom really far in, you can. Get that exactly where you need to go. Hit delete. I didn't get it exactly. I should have zoomed in more, but I'm just playing, so you can see this is a little off. Somehow I didn't have something right, and I'd have to go back and look, but I'm not going to do that right now. And this one might be off too. Maybe it was positioning of something. I'm not quite sure, but we're going to do the same thing and draw around this one and this is the left, right? Nope, it's the right. Okay. Well, see, that one did it better. So I probably would have had to undo the other one, and I probably didn't get it exactly in the corner when I started out. But if you zoom in, you'll be able to get that. I'm trying to hurry for this lesson. See, we're on the bottom now. Hit delete. And then one more way over here. We're gonna do this once again. This is where you probably want to be zoomed out, but I'm zoomed out in, or you want to be zoomed in probably, but I'm zoomed out so you can see what I'm doing. Oh, that's what happens when you're on the wrong layer. Left. And go back to the bottom and get rid of this. And now we have not gotten rid of all of that. And now we have, zoom in when you do it, take your time. You can see how nice this corner looks. And now we have a very nice frame. So you can make these with layers like that and use a variety of layer styles. And the whole key of this is to make one of the edges, and you can make it extra long because after you use your template to position it, then you're going to be cutting it up anyway. So it doesn't matter how long it is. It actually looks really cool with that as a mat, I think. But then you're going to be cutting it up. So you want to make one edge and make it well, whether it's the vertical or the horizontal method, and apply all your layer styles, multiply your layers, and merge them together, and then cut them into their pieces. I showed you how it happens if you do it the other way. That's not the best corner. If you do it the other way, it doesn't look as professional, especially in Photoshop Elements. It doesn't quite work to do it the other way around. Now I can get rid of this. Actually, I'm just gonna, because I was playing it with it, I'm gonna get rid of all of them. Here is the ones I made that I gave away. I made this frame like this. It's a little bit larger, not quite as good to have it as wide as I said, but I made it like this, and then I wasn't sure that I liked the color of it. And so actually, since it's in kind of a grayscale, you can do a lot of things with it if you make your templates in grayscale, as then you can change them up later. I changed mine up by applying a, I have one here, but I'll go ahead and make a new one. A new adjustment layer for a gradient map. Now the default black and white comes up, and that doesn't do a whole lot. But if you go in here, you have one called copper, and now immediately you see what happens. I like the copper, except for my edges that I made here. I actually applied a little bit too much noise, I think, for the copper. So I'm going to double click on here, and if you go out into this flyout area and go down, you're going to see some other choices. Of course, you can make your own gradient, and I have a lesson on that. But here's one on metals, and I can change it to this metal, and look how cool that looks. Let's zoom out. And immediately I have another frame that is a metal frame. I don't like it with as much of the noise that I added, but let's go back up. Or here's one with the steel bar, which is really cool. Or this one is gold, which I don't like at all. or this one is brass, blue. You can get any gradient. Go down here to the pastels and see what happens. There's what happens when you use the variety of them. Where's those metal ones though? I think I used this metal one, but keep in mind then after you apply your gradient on here, your gradient map on here, you can get even more things by, and this is what I did, by applying blending modes. The overlay one doesn't work. Here is hard light. Now that looks like a pretty cool frame to me. Little too thick, as I said, but look at what just changing the layer mode did. And there's yet another luminosity before, after. It's pretty cool. Burn, that one turned out to be a really cool looking frame. So you can see how quickly you can get different things with the frames. If I wanted to, let's see, continue playing. How about a hue and saturation? If I just want to add color, click colorize, and now I have a red frame, green. Let's see, you know how I like my green. Let's make this lighter. And then I have a green frame just by using that adjustment layer. And you can go further and apply the blending modes, which is really cool because now it goes from the green to the white. And remember, you can also do your opacity. Oh, now there. I actually like that frame. I might use that frame. And so there you go. Now let's take off of those ideas. I know this video is getting long, but I think you're learning how to think outside the box. Here is what I did for my other frame. I created, and in fact I'm gonna duplicate this so I can play with it and preserve my original. What I did was I made a horizontal line this time, and I went to the effects palette and I found this gold and I clicked on it and I went, "Ugh! This is the worst layer style ever. How am I ever going to use any of these layer styles that come with Photoshop Elements to make something cool for this lesson?" Then I remembered, you go up here to the layer drop down menu, layer style, and scale effects, and I dropped the effects way down and you can see how it changes until I found something I thought would work. I don't know if that was it or not, but that'll be close enough. And I thought, okay, well that's pretty cool. I could make a frame out of that. Looks a little bit better. But I really want to use some brushes, I thought, and make some scrollies on the edge or something. And I got to playing and I came up with, let's see, that is what I came up with. Let's make a new layer. So I went into the brushes and I looked for a brush and I found this one. I thought, well, the swirl, we'll see what happens. And I held down my shift key on my new layer and I drew that and I applied the same layer style to it and it came out like that, and I said, nope, let's scale those effects again until I came out with something a little bit cooler like that. It's like, well, that's cool. I could put that on the edge. Oh, wait a minute, that looks kind of cool in the center. Let's get rid of these drop shadows. Okay, I got something going there, I thought. Okay, but I still don't have those swirly edges. Alright, let's try again. So I created another new layer and I went up here and I found this one called Eyeballs. I thought, oh, let's just play, because I played with some of the others too. See what happens. Oh, I don't know if I made my brush smaller just then or not. Okay, so I'm trying to get where I can see this whole thing so you can see how it works. And I held down my shift key to make it a straight line, and I went along and I was like, whoa, that's cool. Look at what it does. It doesn't look like eyeballs at all. It's kind of a cool brush. Let's apply that layer style. No, let's right click on this one and copy the layer style we used before and paste it. Alright, now that's kind of cool. Yeah, but what can I do with it? I'm just showing you my thought process. And so I actually moved it down and made it smaller like this, and I think I changed the bevel because I thought it looked better with a smaller bevel. It's like, okay, that's pretty cool. I think. Maybe not. It has stuff sticking out on the edges. Right? So anyway, then I took those 3 layers, selected them all, clicked merge layers, and then I went through that process that I showed you before of creating, whoops, that's an original, that's an original, that's an original. This is actually what I made from my eyeballs. It looks better than the one I just made now. So those are my first 3 that I had made originally, and I merged them all together, and then I went forward and I made just as I showed you before, and I put them around. It was red matte at the time instead of a black, and I put them around it, and I cut the edges as we showed you, and then I actually used the clone tool to add some of this stuff around the edges because the edges didn't cut the little extra stuff very well. It looks kind of funny zoomed really far in, but you have to remember we're at 200%, and that's not going to be how it prints. I mean, at the least you want to at least get down to 100% to see what it looks like. Remember the tutorial, you could also do print size and take a look at what it would look like. 100% actual pixels at 100% is also suggested for you to look at it at that. But anyway, that's how I made that frame. So you can do anything that your imagination will take you. Just get to making those little let's see, there, that would make a cool frame. You just got to find the layer styles. That would make an interesting frame. I thought there was some wood in here, but I'm not seeing it. They might have taken it out. Patterns. Aha. These all would make some interesting frames. There's the wood I was thinking about. So there's some wood. And actually, that's not the best pattern because I'm thinking as you turn it, the wood's gonna, that would be okay, I guess. And then scale those effects. It's not the best wood. But anyway, you would get the same effects. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Actually, we would want to simplify each of those. See, I'm trying to go too fast. Where are they? Because I'm trying to wind this video down. with just another quick sample of something I've not made yet. Simplifying each of them, and in this case it really wouldn't matter because they're all very similar, that you don't have an inside and an outside. Really on these I just undid what I did. Okay, get over there. Get down there. Get over there. Get rid of my mat. You might want to be adding some bevel to this before you change it, but then you could do the same thing. I always like to show you the techniques one last time really quickly just to give you the idea. We want to be on the right layer, left layer, you know, that other layer. These are supposed to be on the top above the other layers. Top layer. And so there we go. If you had a better layer style for wood, this would look a lot better. Anyway, there you go. I'd do that for all four corners and we'd have a great frame. Have fun with this. I can't wait to see what you do with it. I know it's been a long tutorial lesson. Thanks for sticking with me, and see you around the forum.